fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's going around the outside of both of them. Maloney!
Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my God!
Big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get involved.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, there we go.
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my God!
God, what?
Very big hello and welcome everyone to Simspeed TV and to Donington Park for round 2 of Ozicar Skip Barber Series. Every Thursday night this series and these cars turn on the action. It is some of the closest, most competitive, but also some of the nicest sim racing in the Australian leagues and communities. A lot of respect between a lot of long-time competitors here, and that gives us racing that you might not see otherwise. Drivers, they want to beat each other, but they also trying to maintain that respect, and that is what sets apart Ozicar Skip Barber Series. David Haynes here, joined by Jason Fewens, and Jay Kennedy is our producer and cameraman and all of that goodness. Jason, what are you expecting here from this international full layout of Donington?
Yeah, well, tonight we're back at what is rather a picturesque and undulating track, and I expect everything to pick up pretty much where we left off last week. There was some great racing last week, a little bit of, let's say some carnage in the last lap, but a little bit of shuffling of places in the last lap, and we found a couple of drivers a bit further down than what their true speed indicated. So I dare say tonight there'll be a lot of those guys that were up the front last week fighting for a podium position that all missed out, and they'll be pretty keen to redeem themselves tonight.
So doing our UK tour this season, we're at Snetterton 200 last week. We're at full layout of Donington this week. Maybe could have considered the National, but that's sort of my own biases and yours as well, Jason. Definitely the first two sectors of this lap can produce some really close racing and have that sort of undulating character you were talking about and plenty to look at. This is how they're going to line up on the grid with a standing start for race number 1. Pardon me. Ben Snell has the pole, and that's not a small margin at all for Skip Barbers, ahead of Alex McKellar. And then it's pretty close for the rest. James Chastanoff, Brody Cook, Russell Clarke, and Alex John are going to be our top 6. We got Jeremy Bush, Harrison Mitchell, Darren Toon, Neil Gardner, Farron Hancox, and Sean Doyle for the top 12.
Yeah, looking further down the field, we've got Daniel Stubbs, Nathan Verney together off row number 7 tonight. Ash Knowles and Matthew Might side by side off row number 8. Liam Banks and Peter Wilkinson round out row number 9 this evening, separated by just over a tenth of a second. We scroll through the field, we'll also find Dennis Hancock, John Snell, Mark Jeffries back after an absence and a couple of seasons off, so good to see his name back amongst the grid with Matthew Harriet to his right. Craig Kerman, Sean McKenzie round out row number 12 tonight, with Leon Williams, Ira Felberg off 13. Simon Dobner and Peter Bowling off row number 14 tonight. Jamie Willits and Darren Lassou off row 15. Darren, our first driver not to put a time in tonight, so Darren keeping with his normal tradition of not putting a qualifying time in and seeing if he can drive his way through the field.
So a pretty good looking grid for the standing start here at Donington. What have we got? 30 Skip Barbers. Maybe down on some previous seasons, up on some earlier seasons, and definitely more than you'd ever see in official racing. They are ready to get going down towards turn 1, not a giant run, but then it just keeps flowing into competitive corners after that. Away we go. Ben Snell, not bad from pole position. I think Alex McKellar got a slightly better jump, but he's going to find himself on the outside as they approach turn 1. The green wall at the front, punctured by James Chastanoff trying to go down the inside on McKellar, not able to do that early to gain that position. Looks clean all the way so far, but then things get difficult here on cold tyres for these Skip Barbers. Couple corners downhill into a tough braking zone where it's so easy to run out wide at Old Hairpin here. First, second, third cleanly through there, but you'll look a little bit further back and there's some drivers kicking up the dust.
Yeah, quite a few drivers there. Sliding a little bit off the track there and kicking up dirt, like you said, which is just going to make it slippery for next time round. But looks like everybody's made it through unscathed at this stage. A few drivers picking up a few incidences. We see a little bit of contact there in the background and a bit of a tank slapper, and unsuspecting there that
Liam
looks
Banks
like a
has
couple of
picked up,
cars.
I can't quite pick up who that is. Dennis Hancock. It is Dennis Hancock. I was going to say Farron Hancock's, but I knew it wasn't that. So Liam Banks got sideways there, and then in saving it, flicked back the other way. Felberg might also have a little bit of damage, but so far, so good. They come to what's going to be one of the toughest sections of this track. Whoa! And look, this chicane already catching out a lot of drivers as they try to weave through those bollards. You can carry a lot of speed, but you definitely can't go flat out, and you will really, really struggle to go too wide through there. And then you've got this hairpin here. It's named after, well, it shares a name with an Australian city. I can't remember if it's Adelaide or Melbourne.
A couple of cars getting loose through that change of direction, particularly on this opening lap with cold tyres, but by the time they get around there next time, there should be plenty of temperature in all four corners of the car, so hopefully we'll see a lot smoother transition as the cars make their way through that new part of the
and it's got to be the Melbourne hairpin, because the Adelaide hairpin is in France at Manicourt. There we go, I found the information in the filing cabinet that is my brain. Ben Snell, pole sitter, trying to stretch away a little bit here. Look how close they are from second on back. James Chastanoff with Alex McKellar, Russell Clarke, Brody Cook, and Alex John coming along with him. Top six almost breaking away, but look at that. Chastanoff so tidy on lap number 1. Lap number 2 goes well wide, costs himself a whole heap of momentum. And Alex McKellar can't quite get around him to get to the inside for this right-hander. That's a surprise to me, given how out of sorts Chastanoff looks. Now it's Ben Snell's turn.
Yeah, Chasty getting all sorts of sideways on the change of direction at the bottom of the hill there, but managing to keep the foot into it, keeps the momentum up and not actually losing that position. He did put himself under a little bit of pressure, and as a result, that's given Ben Snell a little bit of breathing room out front. So as a group, they're either going to collectively have to try and work us together as a train and reel Ben back in.
Look at them all weaving their way through that chicane. Quick flick, change of direction, pretty fast, but a move a foot here. And Brody, no, not Brody Cook.
Russell Clarke.
Russell Clarke. Yes, Russell Clarke trying to make a move, not done quite yet. Against Alex McKellar. A sea of green at the front. It absolutely is in this race so far. There's another 2 seconds backwards off this top 6 to Harrison Mitchell in 7th, and then Sean Doyle in 8th, a little bit behind that. You get this long shot down the pit straight. You can see our top 6 racing close together, and a couple stragglers, and then what a great battle here. Darren Tune around the outside of Ashley Knowles on the inside, and in the, what is it, sort of golf colours would be Neil Gardner, I think. Stubbs always easy to spot in white and blue with gold rims there as well, right in the middle of this battle pack. A lot of 2 wide here.
Yeah, 2 wides as wide as you want to take it down through this section, particularly as you get to the bottom of the hill there. They need to file back into single formation as we see one of the locked-on lad cars there making up a position on the inside. A little bit opportunistic, but getting the job done.
It sounded like you were going to say more, and I put a mouthful of food in my mouth. Matthew Mites, it was, who had a much stronger run through the old hairpin there. Then a little bit further up here is Harrison Mitchell. Sean Doyle's gotten around him for 7th. Good little battle here. And I hope Mama Doyle watching on the exploits of her son. And you saw just there, not enough momentum for Harrison Mitchell to try to attack into that chicane. He really backed out of it, and oh, someone's made a dog's breakfast of it, and it's Ashley Knowles. He has caught too much of the grass, gone sideways, and he's lost out big time.
Yeah, I think Harrison Mitchell also got a little bit greedy there on the exit of that change of direction and taking a lot of inside curb there on the right-hander down into that Melbourne hairpin, as you spoke about earlier. As we jump on board, have a look at the VRS Virtual School replay at the moment. As we try and get a grasp here of what has actually happened and unfolded on the exit of this. There we go, completely out of shape and just a passenger from that moment on.
Yeah, too much speed in. Goes the wrong side of the bollards for the second apex, and then trying to correct it back the other way, off the road, off the pavement. had a bit of a problem. This is early on. This is from lap 1. This is what Liam Banks did. Cold tyres in a little bit too hot, and then it flicks back the other way, and that's poor.
Dennis Hancock.
Dennis Hancock there. Yeah, indeed.
And of course, we don't see quite in the picture there, but Ira Felberg just ran off the track out of sympathy in the background as well. So I think he actually ended up back in the pits after that little incident. So his race 1 is just about done, as we are already at the halfway point of race number 1 here tonight in this short sprint race around Donington Park.
Yeah, leading pack starting to fracture a little bit. Good battles all the way through. It's proving that the back straight and the pit straight slipstream the cars up pretty close together. Then they've really got to race each other through these corners, like this one, almost a blind apex at the top of the crest, and it's a much tighter line for Harrison Mitchell instead of Sean Doyle. In fact, they've gained a spot. Who have they gained one from?
Either way, Harrison Mitchell's right on the back of Sean Doyle here, so he has got his hands full.
Russell Clarke is who they've gained a spot from.
Unscheduled pit stop, as no one obviously is planning on stopping in race number 1, but obviously maybe didn't put enough fuel in after qualifying to get home.
Either that or he had a problem while we were watching some of those replays from earlier in the race. So this is up front. Ben Snell, pole sitter, still leading. Chastanoff, Alex McKellar, Alex John right with him. Very familiar names for our top 4 at the moment, and they're just letting Ben Snell lead. No, they're not. That is the tiniest little bit of contact there, right at the apex of turn number 1. Ben Snell will know that Chastanoff is there, and Chastanoff has scraped up his nose cone just a little bit, and he's right underneath the rear wing of Ben Snell once again, though, trying to have another look.
Yeah, lucky to get away with that. There's no wing damage on the front of the car, and just a little bit of cosmetic damage to the snout on this little Skip Barber here. So that's what happens with this close racing here. A little front to rear action mid corner could potentially end up in the weeds. But boys are lucky enough they all got away with it there today, and we're still circulating, making our way down towards what is the end of lap number 4.
So we are top 4 in 1.5 seconds, increasingly leaving the rest behind. Brodie Cook's even dropped off this battle and is starting to feel the pressure from Sean Doyle and Harrison Mitchell. And a slight change to the format means that no extra qualifying between race 1 and race 2. Here we go a progressive grid into race number 2. So that is bad news for Dennis Hancock and Russell Clarke and some others who've been through pit lane in this race number 1. Not as much chance of redemption in race number 2. There still will be. It's a new race. It's a new day. And it's a longer race too. This is that little hello, how you going? At turn 1.
Just a bit of a wink, nudge as they made their way through turn 1 there. But as we said before, no real damage. The boys have got a lot of respect for each other, and James and Ben Snell, they're out in front, did a good job of actually not losing too much time.
Absolutely, could have been worse. This is for top 5 here. Brodie Cook's trying to defend the inside, and Sean Doyle on the classic racing line almost manages to get a little bit of air hopping that apex curve. Doesn't seem to have stalled him out too much. And he is pressing down towards the old hairpin. It's a place where if you can put a bit of a pressure on the driver in front, so easy for them to make a mistake. It's off camber and downhill, and you think you can take a certain amount of speed, and you really can't. So they're side by side on the exit here. And again, if Doyle can just keep this speed, as they're flat out here, it leads into the right-hander, and he'll take the top 5 away.
Yeah, Doyle looking very racy at the moment and taking the wide line around through that series of corners, maintaining that mid-corner speed and inevitably getting the job done. As we look back at the top 4 at the moment, absolutely no cars in the background. You just see him swing around the corner now. So there's a good little gap, and what was a top 4 has almost turned into a top 3, as it looks like we've just about lost Alex John.
Yeah, he's not quite on the slipstream as much as he was. He might have had a problem at Old Hairpin or picked up a slowdown somewhere, but it is almost becoming a top 3. So go through the hairpin on the international layout. We've got a great side-by-side, your lead battle and also your top 5 battle on the right-hand side. Doyle has moved up into 5th, but Harrison Mitchell is still right there. Brodie Cook could strike back. Strong qualifying from him as well. Laps are going to count down, and it'll be just 2 to go right now as your leaders cross the line. And as your leaders cross the line, Chastanov has decided he's going to start getting racy, putting more pressure on Ben Snell for the lead. Again, there is a bit of a landmine hiding at that apex curb. Ben Snell catches the worst of it. Chastity right there, trying to go side by side with him. Downhill, snaking through the corners here. Chastanov is probably where you want to be on the brakes into this fast right-hander. Hanging out around the outside is so tough, but Snell is still going to do it. Brave from him. He'll hold on to the lead. This kind of thing is what will help Alex John close back up on the leaders, though, if they go side by side like that.
Absolutely. Alex McKellar getting the best view in the house at the moment, sitting there in third, watching these two go side by side as Ben Snell gets pushed a little bit wide on the exit of the corner there, and that gives Chassis the drive as we come up the hill, flick into this right-hander. There's still two by one in the cross the front of the field here at the moment, as Alex John looks like he's just about on the back of this group here at the moment, while McKellar's looking at making it go three wide.
Yeah, Snell looking like the winner. He's on the right line. Tough to go too wide through here, and Alex McKellar will back out of it. That's going to cost him speed on the way in, on the way through, and then down the next straight here. Alex John right with him. But Chastity, again, trying to look around the outside and maybe even go over under. Whoa, big dive that he sees coming. Chastity sees that coming from Alex McKellar. Big lockup. McKellar actually just gets given second place. Alex John tries to slot through as well. Looking good for Ben Snell if he can break away right now. And for Chastity, he is in all sorts of pressure. It's going to be his turn to lock up a front tyre into one of the hairpins. White flag ready for them in race number 1. Ben Snell just putting a couple car lengths between himself and the battling McKellar, Chastanov, and John. You don't got to look too far behind them, though, to see that top 5 battle is a 4-way fight with Doyle, Cook, Mitchell, and Bush. It's all action up the front, though, as well again, because McKellar, problem through turn number 1. Chastanov goes over-under, dives up into second place.
Yeah, back to where he was a lap ago, but only 3 or 4 corners ago, he was 2 positions further back, which of course would have meant with the progressive grid that he was going to start off row number 2 tonight, but he's fought his way back up here on the white lap, final lap of the race here to find himself back in P2, which is probably where he wants to be, making sure he's on the front row ready for race number 2 tonight.
Everyone's battling at Donington. We've also got a 5-way fight for 9th place, so something for everyone, as always, in Ozicar Skip Barber Series. What Ben Snell has got, though, is almost a second to James Chastanov right now. He's going to be feeling pretty confident up front, I think, with just a couple corners, a couple braking zones left. That 5th place battle that, Jeremy Bush has caught up to the back too as well. And then behind them, Neil Gardner, 9th, Stubbs in 10th. They all appear over the top of the hill. 5 of them all in a line, all in a pack, and it's Smites and Darren Toon and Nathan Verney in this one as well. The whole top half of the grid in some absolutely crazy battles. Is he going to think about it? Stubbs is looking down the inside of the S's, and it's not going to work. I don't think that was ever really going to work. Last sector for the leaders. Ben Snell, last corner for him.
Yeah, I think he's got the gap at the moment where he's going to pretty much guarantee him a position, but it's the minor placings that look like they're going to sort themselves out now as they cross the line. Snell with the win ahead of Chastanov and Alex McKellar for 3rd, but we watch back further in the field as we see what was a battle of 4 now is, or was 5, now is 4.
Need the replay camera for Mitchell and Cook, but keep it warmed up because behind them, Neil Gardner is just going to hold off Daniel Stubbs, and then behind that was Mites, Tune, and then the other locked-on machine of Nathan Verney in 13th. Tell you what, even further back, we didn't quite have the time to look at, but there's still some battle packs there. Knowles going at it with Harriet, Willits and McKenzie and Wilkinson battling each other. This is 6th and 7th. Brody Cook in green, I think, just keeps his nose in front of Harrison Mitchell in the sort of carbon look by about, call that a 1/3 of a car length?
Yeah, enough to get him the points already, and of course that gives him the position ahead of Cook there for the next race as we come back very shortly for race number 2. We will be, of course, having a compulsory pit stop, and the pit window will play out as the race unfolds. But we'll look at the results now from race number 1 tonight.
So a very tightly contested race number 1 at Donington, and this is the results, which will, of course, now set that grid for race number 2 coming up a little bit later. Ben Snell, the only time he had a 1-second lead, the only time anyone had 1 second in their pocket for the lead was Ben Snell on the last lap here, ahead of Chastanov and McKellar completing that podium. Then got Alex John, Sean Doyle, Brody Cook, Harrison Mitchell, Jeremy Bush, Neil Gardner, and Daniel Stubbs. Look at the margins, some really close fights there in the top 10. Further down in 11th, Mites, Tune, Vernie, and then Farron Hancock's Matthew Harriet, Ash Knowles, Jamie Willits, Sean McKenzie, Peter Wilkinson, and Mark Jeffrey for the top 20. 10 more today, and some of these drivers be ruining their luck potentially if they thought they could have started higher up for race number 2. We've got John Snell, Craig Turman, Leon Williams, Ira Felberg, Liam Banks with the early problems, Darren Lasue, Russell Clarke with an unexpected pit stop, and then the same for Simon Dobner, Peter Bowling, and Dennis Hancock. We saw what happened to him.
Yes, well, for some drivers it was a great result, and for others what could have been. But we all get to reset now and come back very shortly as we jump on board. Have a look at this virtual racing school replay again as we see the finish of the race here. It's not quite the finish. This is a little bit earlier on with the contact, I think, with James Chastanoff and Ben Snell going through turn 1.
Chasty, just a little bit of contact. I don't think he wanted to make contact there. I don't think he wanted to take the lead like that, but it shows exactly how close they can race each other up the front here. It's a wonder we even recovered the footage from this nose camera. But it'll show you they like to use that pit exit a little bit to open up the entry to turn 1, and there, the little hit didn't stop Ben Snell from taking the race number 1 win, which is going to be pole position again for race number 2. Take a quick break here on Simspeed TV, and we'll be back in a minute with the longer pit stop race this round of Ozicar Formula Skip Barber Series. Back in a minute.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
Are you spending a lot of time looking for setups and struggling for faster lap times? Are you tired of searching online for answers? Would you like to get setups, analysis and tutorials from some of the best sim racers in the world like Ralph Alla, Mitchell de Jong, Martin Krunker, Josh Rogers and many more? If so, virtualracingschool.com is the answer you've been looking for. VRS data packs provide hot laps from our professional coaches for you to analyse and replicate. They provide tutorials that walk you through the fastest laps and what the pros did to achieve the best times. And they provide the setups you need to ensure your car is competitive in both oval and road racing. If you're ready to get faster and reach more podiums sooner than later, just go to virtualracingschool.com and sign up for a free account today.
This is iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in indoor series from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Aussie Supercars and more. Take on legendary circuits like Daytona, Silverstone and the Nürburgring. Join iRacing's global online racing community and get on track today at iRacing.com.
And welcome back. 30 seconds until they line up on the grid for race number 2, which will be a longer race here for Ozicar Formula Skip Barber Series at Donington. More laps. What is it? Going to be 16 instead of 8. And there will be a required pit stop because of the fuel limitation, but also a compulsory 2-tyre change. Pretty broad pit window here. I wonder what we're going to see the leaders do. Definitely a week ago, Ben Snell was kind of rewarded from going early, wasn't he, Jason?
Yeah, well, he was one of the few that went early. Quite a few of the drivers sort of hung out for as long as they potentially could, and we saw Ben Snell get the benefit of that as the race unfolded. So it'll be interesting to see whether he takes the same ploy tonight. He has spoken to us in the comms box previously, and after a round or season last season, where he was actually missing for a couple of rounds, he's pretty keen to make amends and put his name forward for a real championship challenge this season.
Going well today. Qualified pole, took race 1 win, now going to start from pole for race number 2. And we'll quickly scroll through this one because it is as they finished from race number 2, but he's going to be starting with James Chastanoff, Alex McKellar, Alex John, Sean Doyle, Brodie Cook, all in very close company. Harrison Mitchell still inside the top 10, and so too Jeremy Bush, Neil Gardner, and Daniel Stubbs, last car in the top 10. Got Matthew Mites. Darren Tune slipped back a little bit in race number 1. Strong qualifying match with the race pace. Got Nathan Burney, Farron Hancock, Matthew Harriet, Ashley Knowles, Jamie Willits, Sean McKenzie, Peter Wilkinson, Mark Jeffrey, John Snell, Craig Kerman, Leon Williams, Ira Felberg, Liam Banks, Darren Lassew, Russell Clarke, Simon Dobbin, Peter Bowling, and Dennis Hancock. All a bunch of really, really familiar names. Love to race against each other. Lights are going to come up. And from pole position, can Ben Snell convert one more time at Donington? He revs, he drops the clutch, and he gets away, but Mark Jeffrey, I believe, further back in the pack, doesn't. Not everyone getting cleanly off the start, but up the front in the top 10. Ben Snell's done exactly what he needed to do. Tired, still cold, they got to be careful racing this close.
Yeah, I think Mark Jeffrey there had an accelerator problem, so he was unable to get away from the line, but it looks like everybody behind him has managed to avoid him. He gave them all plenty of notice as the cars up the front making their way down the hill on these cold tyres. We saw cars run wide here in the last race, so we'll see whether anybody's learnt from that. Looks like everybody has made it through at this stage.
There's a couple off the track. I saw Liam Banks. I saw some others as well. Liam Banks just because he's further off the track, but I think Harriet? Shortcut part as well. There are a few drivers struggling early with their cold tyres. We're trying to make up some spots early, but maybe overextending themselves a little bit. Not the problem for Ben Snell, but he's side by side with James Chastanoff as they come over the crest there and into shot for the first time. Chasty trying to strike while the iron is cold. Is that an expression? Gonna make it one. Alex McKellar in third with John in fourth behind, but side by side, wheel to wheel, super early for the race lead. Chasty around the outside refuses to give up through the S's, and that's going to stack them up super tight. Look at everyone else with huge amount of speed. McKellar might even come around the outside of both of them, looking 3 wide almost. Ben Snell might just hold on super tight at the apex of the hairpin.
Yeah, you can see all those cars checking up, and of course they had the flow-on effect down at the Melbourne Loop as they do a complete 180, make their way back up the hill behind the pit facility there to complete lap number 1. But Chassey's given himself from a challenge from the lead back to a little bit of pressure in P4 at the moment as we make our way across the line. That is the end of lap number 1 of this 16-lap race number 2 here tonight at Donington Park.
The leaders going side by side have really stacked them up and kept everyone else close to the leaders. Alex John was the big winner, but Alex McKellar is not. He's dropping down the order and he's in the gravel. Caught a little bit of the grass on the exit of turn 1, I think. Tyres still cold. Flung himself around and he is going backwards in a hurry.
Yeah, it's going to hurt their team's championship this early in the season, but we have got a long way to go. So with a bit of team strategy as the season unfolds, they might be able to fight their way back. But one thing we haven't spoken about tonight as far as teams go, James Chastanoff's teammate, Braden Martin, is missing in action tonight. So that's something we haven't necessarily picked up on this evening. I'm not sure where he is tonight. Might have a virtual COVID vaccine and couldn't get into Europe. I'm not sure exactly what happened.
I see what you're trying to say. Problem there for McKellar, just catching the replay of what happened to him, trying to race really close quarters. Turn number 1 on the live pictures, though they're going to race really close quarters here, as don't expect Sean Doyle to give anything. He came from around the outside there to lead through that chicane. Got Harrison Mitchell still right behind him, Brodie Cook right there, and I could keep rattling off names as they all stay so close in this battle. Now over 4th place. You can see the top 3, a little bit of a gap out in front, but so close. Yeah, over 4th place. And in fact, Harrison Mitchell looking like he might be under threat from Brodie Cook, who's looking around the outside, looking over under in the final corner. That can set you up well, and we've seen some passes happen into turn 1. A problem for Harrison Mitchell there, dropping back big time. No drive, or did he have a slowdown penalty?
He's still going, so it might have been a slowdown or a miss of a gear there, potentially.
So we're going to look back at the race start just a couple laps ago. And some of what happened. So hello to everyone who's out my window who seems like they need to honk their horn. So Jobner was around the corner on the race start, and he catches that driver of Mark Jeffrey, who had no throttle, no power, going nowhere.
Yes,
Dobler and
absolutely.
Mark Jeffrey both looking like retirements from the race at the moment, unless we see them emerge from pit lane, but they've both been in the pits for basically 2 or 3 laps now, since the very start of the race, obviously. Ash Knowles, does he find himself right now 20th, having started 16th?
Yeah, caught up in a little battle pack here at the moment with Russell Clarke in front of him, who we saw, he's a long way back from where he started as well. Started P5 in race number 1 and finished P27, so he's working his way back through the field at the moment. We'll jump on board, have a look at another VRS replay here with Ash Knowles.
Just too much of that grass, just dipping the outside tyres on it. Oh, I'm impressed with the save. I don't know about you. I'm impressed with that save. He went further off the track than he sort of went on it that lap.
Yeah, plenty of runoff here around this circuit, and Ash there using the old analogy of when in doubt, throttle out, kept the boot into it and managed to make his way back to the track with losing a little bit of time and a couple of positions, but overall he's still circulating, and he'll be keen to claw back those positions that he lost after that little error.
Bad things happen on loose surfaces if you lift off the throttle too aggressively. So some good rally driving experience there for Ash Knowles. This is up front. Ben Snell trying a clean sweep. And he's not. He's under pressure from John and Chastanoff. John's teammate Alex McKellar having yet more trouble right now. Facing the wrong way in turn 1, I think it is.
Yeah, McKellar there accidentally getting caught up by Leon Williams, I think it was, there in turn number 1. So things going from bad to worse there for Alex. We are on board now with his teammate Alex John up the front.
Yeah, and the cars seem to pick up a good slipstream down the back straight here. Short little braking zone before they're going to go downhill and do the quick flick of directions. Keep it in between the bollards there. So easy to get a slowdown penalty if they do cut one of them. So easy to end up in some other kind of problems as well there. We've seen the hairpin, tight line for Snell, wider line for John, and James Chastanoff just sticking with them. Here's Harrison Mitchell, and Brody Cook looks like he might lose a spot here. That's Nathan Verney who sends it down the inside. It's Matthew Harriet who locked up big time. We didn't seem to lose out too much from them behind there. Clarke, McKenzie, Jamie Willits, Farron Hancock, particularly Sean McKenzie and Russell Clarke here. You'd expect to see a little higher up, so maybe they'll even start catching some cars further ahead.
Yeah, it's like we saw in race number 1, plenty of little battle packs forming well down the list as the field scrolls through to complete another lap. But we are what we think is inside the pit window at the moment. We're on lap 5 of 16. So I would expect to see a few drivers trying to do the undercut, which is potentially quite favourable here at Donington Park tonight. So like you said earlier, a bit of fuel, a change of front tyres is probably recommended for the majority of the drivers tonight. So next time round, we'll see actually who dives into the pits and if anyone's going to be the first one to make that move, and then as a result, who's going to blink and go with them.
Yeah, limited fuel tank size. We sort of just crossed that watershed from which they could take on fuel and be able to get to the end. I love this shot as the cars appear turning and sometimes sideways over the top of the crest, and you sort of don't see anything, and then boom, 3-4 cars in a battle pack all seem to appear like that. This battle pack is Harrison Mitchell for 7th, leading Brody Cook for 8th. Cook just doesn't feel like he's got the speed to be able to look down the inside or battle into the chicane here. That makes sense. The best overtaking opportunities are into the hairpin or into turn 1. It'll cost you the least time, take the least risk. But as he waits, Nathan Verney has gotten closer, and Verney was super brave down the inside here just a couple laps ago. He's not going to do it this time. Just kind of watching, biting my tongue on board for was Verney going to appear down the inside. He didn't. He's got his teammate Matthew Mites right behind him as well there.
We look across on our YouTube coverage. We've got a couple of spectators out there yelling out, go John Snell, go Peter Bowling. So we've got some fan favourites on track tonight.
We've got two instances of Good Luck Doyle, though. So tally that up, and that appears to be our leader at the moment in the fan vote.
Jump on board. Have a look at John Snell now in action as he makes his way into turn number 1 in that rusty-looking Skip Barber. So it certainly goes a lot quicker than what it looks with that livery on at the moment. But as they make their way down the hill again, definitely going to be in draft mode when they get round to the back of the circuit and get into some straight line action.
I believe the polite word for rust bucket is patina, which suggests that there's some character to the weathering. Or you could say rust bucket. This is Matthew Harriet, sandwiched between Daniel Stubbs and Russell Clarke. They come to what it can be a double apex right-hander at the top of the hill. We see the cars appear from that TV shot, but from the driver's eye line, you can't quite see the apex until you're already turning into it and already appearing up the top of the hill.
Yeah,
Alex Michaela, several setbacks for him so far in this race, but he is going to not give up and grab another point, another position. Probably thinking less of his own race and more thinking of that team's championship, I imagine, is what's keeping him persevering.
Yeah, we are running in week 2 of a 6-week series here, so we do have a long way to go, and it's too early in the season to potentially be throwing in the towel because you just never know what's going to happen in the weeks ahead. So every point counts, as the old saying goes. So we see now our first car that looks like a scheduled pit stop. This is Jeremy Bush diving into the pits.
Yeah, we've got a run on the pit lane from the Locked On iRacing guys. We've got Bush, Mites and Verney, all these teammates deciding that they are going to pit together before the halfway point of the race. You can see the compulsory tyre change in action, the fuel going in, and almost all of them the same pit stop time as well, though Mites was probably the bigger winner here from his stop time. Those 3 guys are the first to have cleared their required stop. Oh, all out of sorts there. Who's that behind Matthew Harriet? It'd have to be... Oh, it is Matthew Harriet.
So it looks like those boys that just took their pit stop have come out in clean traffic, so that's going to be beneficial for them at the moment. They're not necessarily going to get caught up and tripping over each other as they get back into a rhythm now and get these front tyres back up to temperature, but at least they've got their pit stop out of the way now and they can just focus on the remaining laps of this 16-lap race and push hard and get home and try and secure a good position.
Peter Wilkinson's graphic there says Sunshine Coast, which is a little generous to Caboolture. But anyway, it's his hometown, not just quite where he finds himself based at the moment. Right on board with Brodie Cook. Yet to pit, he's in 7th, looking at Harrison Mitchell in 6th. As a plane flies overhead. It's East Midlands Airport that we're underneath the flight path of. Pit entry to the left would need you to be a little tighter through that hairpin. That's how you knew those guys weren't going for it, but there are a few others in relatively early, I would say. Alex John, Sean Doyle, and there's a few others thinking about it too. Sean McKenzie, Farron Hancock, Jamie Willett.
You can see the cars jumping their way down through the levelled pit bay area there, making their way to their lollipop man as we have a quick look as we see McKellar, I think it is there, Alex John getting back out and up to speed. And of course he comes straight across from traffic and tries to dispose of car 17 Kerman there as soon as he possibly can. He's taken the long way around the outside, but it looks like he gets the job done before he gets into this braking zone and the change of direction at the bottom of the hill here.
So important to get to that apex, otherwise you find yourself just still getting carried out even further wide by the camber and the elevation, and then into that grass that Ashley Knowles has already led a couple tracks through. Here's more of the drivers coming off pit lane, and Alex John well clear as lead driver to have pitted. Then got Doyle finds himself still ahead of Bush. Mites and Verney pretty close together.
It'll be interesting to see whether these leaders actually come up on some lap traffic relatively soon, if they haven't already, and that just might be their opportunity or their calling to dive into pit lane and get their pit stop out of the way, because we are at the halfway point of the race.
Yeah, absolutely we are. The lap's flying by. That's a big lock-up, but still getting it to the apex there. But Neil Gardner might not help him stay in touch with Ashley Knowles as we look backwards. His rear wing, none of these three here have yet to pit, so as they make their way through the final corner, if they're going for pit lane, it's going to need to be a tight line off the exit, which Knowles doesn't do, but the two cars behind both spring pit entry, Gardner and Matthew Harriet.
You can see there the car's just using absolute all the track and then some as they use that little bit of pit lane exit there to get the maximum turn in and the ability to carry as much speed through turn number 1 as we can. We have a look at Mitchell and Cook out there on track at the moment before they slightly disappeared for a split second, and they're back.
Elevators battling over 4th and 5th with the drivers we've had hit, particularly I think Alex John and Sean Doyle might have elevated this battle a little bit. Stubbs and Clarke. Again, 2 drivers yet to pit. Russell Clarke sort of really on the fight back a little bit after that race 1. In fact, he's plus 20 positions so far in this race, is Russell Clarke. Probably would have liked to have had another qualifying session rather than have started 27th. He's made the most of it, and it looks like he's thinking of going long. He might have been helped by some of those drivers pitting early.
Yeah, car 39 and car 7 here going through that Melbourne loop before they make their way back up the hill again. But probably one of the slowest sections on the track here at the change of direction at that point, but it also is a great braking opportunity as we see a few cars tonight lock up and go a little bit deep. We did see Chastity do that in race number 1 and lose a couple of positions. So a critical part of the track, even if it is not necessarily the quickest part.
They stay out. Someone in the background looking for the pit lane. That was sort of half-hearted from Ash Knowles back there. He stays out, but it almost looks like he wanted to go for pit entry. Peter Bowling, I think there's... Oh, yeah, I can definitely see some damage on that. He's in pit lane at the minute.
You see a little scrap here with 4 cars so close together at the moment. We look at the back of Matt Harriet here, back in 21st currently, and Ozicar Racing team on the inside getting the move done there, pushing a little bit wide on the exit, but nonetheless getting a good run and down the straight for another lap complete. That was Sean McKenzie getting the job done, but he's under plenty of pressure here as he makes his way into turn number 1 again.
These 4 have all pitted, so it's properly for position. Sean McKenzie led them as a snake down the pit lane, down the pit straight, down the sort of middle of the road there. He's managed to hold on, and it's going to be Harriet and Gardner side by side behind him. That's going to really help McKenzie to see that in his mirrors. Gardner not able to get down the inside, so Harriet will hold on to that one for the minute. Stubbs and Clarke once again, and Clarke goes exploring. And an unconventional line from Stubbs as well. Neither of them looked particularly quick through there with that kind of shenanigans. I think if... it's real hot on pit entry for Ben Snell. Hope it was legal. But I was thinking, if you were in Russell Clarke's shoes, coming to pit entry here, you just do the opposite of whatever Daniel Stubbs chooses to do.
Try to get the pass done in pit lane, as we've seen plenty of drivers do that in the past. But at the moment, our race leader out the front, James Chasanoff, has taken over the lead of the race from Ben Snell after he has pitted. So Chastity going for the overcut. And it's going to see if that works. We watch car 141 of Ben Snell make his way back out onto the circuit now.
And no penalty in that pit stop. So it looked very ambitious on the pit entry with the speed limiter, but on the right side of legal. And I'm sure he'll be pretty happy with that pit stop time. He's got to be careful bringing those new tyres up to temperature, but he's also got to push pretty hard at this point, or James Chastanoff will overcut him.
Yeah, so Russell Clarke here in the Mario helmet car, the Milo car, as we look at him at the moment, currently sitting in P2. He would be potentially one of our last cars yet to pit. So he is up 25 positions with 6 laps to go. He is going to have to pit in the next couple of laps, though, because the fuel tanks are limited. They only can carry so much fuel, and he will be almost down to the smell of an oily rag.
So Peter Wilkinson has, I think, parked it, actually. And we're going to grab a replay of what happened to the locked-on iRacing driver towards turn 1. See drivers struggle with that apex curb. Oh, someone's coming out of the pit lane. Is that going to cause an issue here? Oh, that is going to be the problem. It immediately breaks the left rear suspension as he makes contact with the unpainted car, which could have been Harriet?
Yeah, I'm thinking in that carbon fibre matte black finish of the car, it's quite distinctive.
Harriet or Mitchell or Tune. I can't try to remember who else is in an unpainted car. It's Harrison Mitchell.
So our race leader now exiting the pits and sacrificing the lead of the race back to Ben Snell. So he was about 2.5, 3 seconds behind the leader before the pit sequence took place. And I would suggest they're almost back at that same gap at the moment. So nothing lost, nothing gained, but worth a try nonetheless.
Somehow, just 5 laps to go at this point. Russell Clarke was one of the last drivers to pit. He's going to try to rejoin, and as you see, started in 27th. Pit stops complete. He is into 10th. 3 seconds behind the next car for position, so he could still get after that and make even more hay. The sun is shining on him in race number 2. But didn't. In race number 1, Snell's got a gap at the lead and warmer tyres than James Chastanoff, so he might just be able to walk this one home like he could in the final lap of race number 1. Got a good battle that's now emerged in 6th and 7th and 8th. Remember, Mites and Bush pitted at the same time. They've got Brodie Cook right in front of them, who's just made his pit stop. He's still going to be walking tentatively on ice because his tyres aren't up to temperature. No hope of a second apex at the right-hander there as well. Still struggling with that understeer on cold tyres. Mites has got a lot of speed. Is he going to try to strike down the inside here? He's maybe a little smarter than that, but I think at the hairpin might be one of his best shots. Not a good run through the chicane though. Bush has an even stronger run.
Yeah, too far back going into Melbourne Loop here to take a dive and have a look down the inside. So he's just going to have to sit there for the moment and wait for a potential opportunity by Cook there to maybe make a mistake. But at the same time, he's also going to be rather defensive and smart because he does have the car of, is it 04? Directly on his tail at the moment. So bit of a cat and mouse game going on here at the moment.
And after all the insane 4- and 5-way battle packs in race number 1, things are just a little more spread out and a little more sane in race number 2. I think there's still time for that to change with 4 laps to go. This is the closest battle in the top 10 still, between 6th and 7th and 8th. Keller has fought his way back into 14th with some drivers in tow there. Really struggle bus first half of the race for McKellar. He's going to try to get away as Mackenzie and Banks fight. Willitson, Harriet and Neil Gardner could still fight over 17th as well. Looking at this one here, Banks trying to take every alternative line he can to pressure Mackenzie. So down into the old hairpin. Oh, Mackenzie almost falls for it, but so does Banks as both of them continue to dig that rut on the far side of the curb just a little deeper.
Yeah, some great camera angles there, and it really showing just how much these cars do move around mid-corner, and they tend to slide. You've really got to learn how to slide these cars and carry a lot of that speed.
Brodie Cook's been off the track. Matthew Mites and Jeremy Bush have gone ahead of him.
VRS replay at the moment as we have a look at Brodie Cook exploring the track limits there, getting well and truly outside the white painted lines on the edge of the track. Again, missing that second part of the apex on that corner and going very, very, very wide and sacrificing a couple of positions as a result.
Still didn't find that front tyre temperature he was looking for. He's on his, actually first flying lap. Second flying lap since that pit stop, but it's still not quite like it was earlier on, and you can see that has let Mites and Bush ahead. They're slipstreaming off each other, and it's let Nathan Verney catch as well, so it could be double, triple threat for Brodie Cook here.
Yeah, the car they're pulling off on the left-hand side as well. I'm not sure exactly what's happened there, but That is John Snell, maybe deciding to call it a night. Not exactly sure what happened there. I didn't actually. Peter Bowling decided to call it a night. So something's happened there. I think it might have been rear contact with another car, but nonetheless decided to pull off the racing line off the circuit, and he has parked it. So that's ended his race tonight with 3 to go.
Brody Cook probably sick of seeing locked-on cars. 2 of them have gone past him, and now the pressure is still right on him from Nathan Verney. More typical line as the tyres keep building up temperature and coming in for Brody Cook, but he has got Nathan Verney right in behind him. The teammate's going to battle in front, or they're not. Matthew Mites is going to fall back into line.
Yeah, we saw a couple of cars earlier on, particularly in that lead pack, go too wide through the chicane there, and as a result there was a big gaggle of cars into this braking zone here and a lot of brake checkups. But in this case, all drivers reverted back to the single file, and the quickest way through the corner, of course, is following each other.
It's not a mouthful of food. I've got a sneeze coming on. Everything conspiring against me at the moment.
Big brake lock up there in the Milo car in the background by Cook, but he hasn't necessarily sacrificed too much time as the drivers go around, complete another lap. The leader is potentially halfway around, so we do have a lap and a half to go up the front of the field here tonight. But as we make our way back down through the sequence of left, right, left corners as the potentially the best flowing part of the track.
Is just under 2 laps to go, and I just saw that lead lose about half a second for Snell. I don't know if he had a problem somewhere, but he doesn't seem to be under too much pressure from James Chastanoff just yet. Alex John's still there, closing in on the both of them as well. A little overcast as well. Another driver just trying to stay out of the way of our podium contenders here. Darren Toon, quite achiever in this race, it must be said. Where did he start? 12th. Then 12th, he's running 4th.
Yeah, great effort there by Darren to find himself just outside the podium. He is the first car off the podium, somewhat 14 seconds off the leader at the moment, but he has got Sean Doyle in his mirrors in P5, and of course Jeremy Bush there in that car number 4 as well, doing a great job this evening, getting up a couple of positions from where he started as well.
They're gearing up for the final lap of the race. White flag will get displayed to Ben Snell this time. And it'll also get shown to this battle that have all closed up on each other. Matthew Mites, Jeremy Bush, Brody Cook catching that. Nathan Verney catching that into the final corner. They will go. We look backwards from Matthew Mites. Later apex in what's kind of an off-camber corner there. Gets him decent speed onto the pit straight, but he's still got to be conscious of everyone following in his wheel tracks and slipstreaming off him down towards turn 1, not the least of which is 2 of his teammates plus Brody Cook.
Yeah, really good camera view on board there we just saw going into turn 1. It really shows just how blind some of these corners are, and quite often a lot of these corners here at this Donington circuit are blind, so you really have to commit to it well and truly, and if you find yourself offline, it's a matter of trying to rectify it and get yourself back online and making the best of a bad situation.
Snell building out his lead, things kicking off for 2nd and 3rd though. Alex John with a huge turn of speed right now, closing in on James Chastanoff. The overtaking opportunities are very, very few in the remainder of the last lap though. Will he be crazy enough to bonsai down the inside of the chicane? No, that means he's got 2 hairpins to try to get the job done, and he's so aggressive with the bollards through the chicane, right up behind Chasty for 2nd place. Ben Snell doesn't need to worry about this at all. It's Chastanoff who's got to worry about Alex John down the inside at the first of the hairpins. Can he get clear before the second one, before the track swaps back in the opposite direction? Checkered flag waiting for them in just 1 moment. Chastanoff trying to hold ground, locks up, runs in a little bit deep, doesn't concern Ben Snell. He's going to lock out the race wins from this round, and Chastanoff's going to hold on to 2nd. Alex John in 3rd.
Snell fashion there, performing a crowd favourite, putting plenty of smoke as he crossed the line, but the battle isn't over here further back in the pack as they make their way out of the last corner. A couple of cars running over some debris from that accident that we saw after the checkered line. but it looks like everybody in that little battle pack has now made it through. Look a bit further back again, and we look at Sean McKenzie. I think this one here is under pressure.
And Liam Banks in the background here as well. McKenzie looked like he's going to hold on to 15th from Willits. And Banks, Gardner and Harriet right behind there as well. So close in these final spots in the top 20. Felberg and Lesieux still battling over 22nd and 23rd here as well, potentially. Oh, well wide from Felberg. Is he actually going to cede a position in the final sector of the lap here? It's going to take some bravery and some good judgment from Lesieux to come from around the outside to try to cross back underneath. That's what Lesieux's trying to do. Felberg covers a short line. They can stage a photo finish almost here. I think Lesieux is going to pick that one off from Felberg.
Yeah, that wide line, the over-under going into that last corner definitely worked for the Lesieux there, so he picked up the extra points and got ahead of Ira Felberg by the smallest of margins. But that's just about another race done and dusted all the way from Donington over in England as part of our English tour, and we'll have a quick look and run through the results here, David.
Ben Snell, 2 poles, 2 wins, perfect fashion at Donington. Chastanoff and Alex John completing that podium, and they were head and shoulders above the rest, it would seem. Darren Toon drove a pretty quiet one there to get a good result of 4th place. I think he's playing the strategy perfectly there. Didn't see too many on-track passes, but clearly moving up the order come the checkered flag. Doyle in another top 5, and might have even been closing towards the end there on 4th. We had a great 4-way battle between Mites, Bush, Cook, and Verney, 6th through to 9th. And the top 10 rounded out by Russell Clarke, attempting a last to first challenge. Well, he couldn't quite crack first, but he still was one of the biggest movers with plus 17 positions or so to complete the top 10.
Yeah, Daniel Stubbs in P number 11 tonight, down one from where he started the race. Ash Knowles and Alex McKellar in at 12 and 13. So McKellar, they're good and caught up in traffic tonight. But after an off-track excursion halfway through the race, quite early in the race, actually making the best of the scenario and getting as many positions as he could. Farron Hancock's out of 14 tonight as they cross the line, and we saw Sean McKenzie, Jamie Willits, Liam Banks, and Neil Gardner finish in that order, followed by Matthew Harriet right on their tail, and then it was a little bit of a gap back to P20 Craig Kerman this evening, rounding out our second group of our top of 10. Then
John Snell still on the lead lap. Darren Lesieux and Ira Felberg so close right at the end there. Dennis Hancock in 24th. Leon Williams 1 lap down. 4 down for Dobner. 5 for Mitchell and Bowling. 6 for Peter Wilkinson. Unfortunate bit of contact that just sheared his suspension. And Mark Jeffrey, no drive off the start, 30th place.
Yeah, not the comeback campaign from Mark Jeffrey would have potentially had in mind tonight, but he did have a reasonable result there in race number 1, so he can at least take that away from here, and hopefully we'll see him back again next week as we come back and complete round number 3 of...
a can of drink that's no longer branded? Anyway.
Yeah, can't put my finger on exactly what it is, but it does look like she has been blacked out at the moment, so maybe there is some potential updates with some new signage coming here at Donington Park. As we
at Donington Park wait on some new signage, we wait on some of our drivers and our podium getters to trickle in. Ben Snell's not here yet because he's obviously still doing donuts and patting himself on the back. Right on cue, though. So let's do my favourite, 3rd, 2nd, 1st, and we'll grab Alex John right off the bat. What's that? 4th in race 1, 3rd in race 2. Consistency, but not the pace to challenge Ben Snell.
No, not tonight. Tonight was jump in and see how we go. So it was a damage limitation tonight to get away in the top end of the field in both races.
And how did we find this long, full layout of Donington? Obviously, you still have that old hairpin corner, one of the most challenging, I think, because of the camber, but then got that chicane and the hairpins, and quite challenging overall, I think.
Yeah, I really like this layout. I rate it over the other one, if I'm honest, the shorter version. But this I haven't raced this track in this car in a long time, and the old hairpin, it seemed so much more deadly than previous years. It was really tough.
And thinking the team game, I mean, last season was sort of punctuated with this battle between your team and the Locked On Guys of Chastity and Braden Martin. No Braden Martin tonight would have been a benefit to you guys, but then your teammate McKellar sort of was really amongst the wars that first half of the race too.
Yeah, there's a few uncharacteristic errors from McKellar, but yeah, I think we should still go all right. No Braden. I'm not sure where Russell finished in the second one, but yeah, I think it's going to be tight between all those three teams. I think even, we've seen in years before, you can miss a race and then other things happen to other people, and it can all get very tight in the final round.
You absolutely never say never. We've got some interesting things coming up later in this schedule. Racing on dirt, racing at Spa. Looking forward to any of those in particular, one of those that might favour you, because that is always going to be a chance to mix things up.
Well, in the 1 hour qualifying session just before, Ben pointed out that we're going to have to qualify on dirt, and everyone sort of had a big groan at the thought of doing an hour on dirt. I don't know how that's going to go, whether it's necessary to warm tyres on there. I have no idea. I've never experienced it. So that'll be the big one. Throw the cars in there and see where they land. We've got to get through the overround. Every season you've got to get through the overround and see where you're standing after that.
Well, fourth and third, congrats, I suppose, and hopefully see you again soon in a week.
Yeah, no worries, guys. Thanks.
That was Alex John. Yeah, absolutely. First of our podium getters here tonight. And as we continue on, we will drag Chastity P2 tonight in race number 1 and race number 2. So great points haul for James nonetheless. We'll join him in the commentary box right now.
Hey guys, how you doing?
G'day. Welcome back to the commentary box after last week's disappointing race number 2, where you potentially gave away a position on the podium. A couple of strong results tonight certainly put yourself back in the game as far as championship's concerned.
Yeah, it was a good result. I mean, last week was all right. I mean, didn't really give it away. I was just trying to hold on to it and just couldn't do it. So it wasn't too big of a deal. Still, fifth place was all right. But yeah, no, it's good to finally be in the commentary box. I think it's been a while since I've actually been here after a race.
Yes, well, you got plenty of on-screen coverage as we look at you on the screen at the moment. There was a couple of instances there, particularly in race number 1. We saw a little bit of nose-to-tail action with Ben Snell going in through turn number 1. So managed to keep going there with minimal damage, but of course a heart and mouth moment for both of you there.
Yeah, it definitely was. I wasn't sure exactly what happened there. I don't know if Ben had to check up a little bit because he realised his line was wrong, but he just right on the apex there. It just seemed to go a little bit slower than I was expecting, and I tried to just sort of get out of the gas as much as I could, and then I still bumped him, and then just hoped that he stayed on track as he wobbled around. But as good as he is in control and out of control in these cars, yeah, he held it, so that was good. A bit worried it would ruin the battle there.
And of course, with the progressive grid tonight between race 1 and race number 2, we didn't have that second qualifying session, so it was rather critical that you got a good result in race number 1. And we did see a big brake lock-up going into Melbourne Loop there late in the race, which of course put you back into P4, but a strong fight back in the dying laps there found yourself back in P2 and of course on the front row for the grid race number 2. So a little bit of work there to do, put yourself in a bit of a tricky situation, but you managed to pull it all together and come up with the goods.
Yeah, it was actually a off-track slowdown at the chicane, and I just had to pull it wide and just cruise around the outside and rub off that slowdown, knowing that I'd have a good run out of the corner. So I knew I could probably get one or hopefully 2 of them back. coming out of that hairpin. But yeah, just got the one of them, and then luckily for me, I think Alex made a mistake at turn 1 again, so I was able to get back into second place. So a little bit fortunate there.
Yeah, rather strategic move, and obviously paid off. And then I think on the opening lap of race number 2, you decided to go too wide. Of course, everybody checked up behind you in going into that same Melbourne Loop corner, and you found yourself back again. I think P4 coming out of that. So a couple of heart in mouth moments throughout the evening tonight. But by all accounts, you've got to be happy with 2 podiums, 2 second places.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm trying to pick off the top step as much as I can, but yeah, no, it's still good. To get up on the podium and just get some consistent points. Ben was just way too quick this week, way too quick. So yeah, just couldn't catch him. But yeah, no, it was a good race, and we'll be back next week.
And of course, your teammate tonight missing in action. So as far as team championships go, it was critical that you put on a good performance tonight, which is exactly what you did manage to do. So was there any word as to why Braden wasn't on track tonight?
Yeah, he just had some clashes with some other things. So yeah, he just couldn't get it in. I think he knew that coming into the season. We knew this that he wouldn't make every race necessarily. So yeah, hopefully he'll be back soon, and without the pressure of having to go for a championship now that maybe he's out of contention, or at least mentally out of the contention, he can come in, just try and go for race wins. Because I think he's well overdue for a top step of the podium result.
Absolutely, with his qualifying results and showing some amazing speed there in the late part of last season, he's obviously in contention for a good result rather soon. So I'll just throw the microphone over to you. You can say a few thank yous to your sponsors before we let you go.
Yeah, big thanks to Locked On Racing, our sponsors, the Locked On Podcast, Brewster, and CD Cinematography. Thanks to all the guys racing every week. Racing is just really awesome and fun to do. And big thanks to you guys running the show and making the broadcast as good as it is. And yeah, I hope it's good to see Jay back, and I hope he's doing okay.
Well, of course, the Ozicar Skip Barber Series putting on an absolute cracking race here at Donington Park tonight. We are back next week for another round at Silverstone, so we'll potentially talk to you then. Fingers crossed you can find yourself back on the podium again, and we'll see you back in the commentary box.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Hopefully talk to you next week.
P2 tonight in both races 1 and 2. James Chastanoff continuing his championship campaign in a strong form. And of course, there's only one step higher than that, and that goes to our race 1 and race 2 winners tonight in the form of Ben Snell. We'll throw him up into the commentary box, and I'll throw over to you, Dave.
Yeah, welcome, Ben. Locking out the pole positions, locking out the race wins, you must be feeling Snellated.
Snellated, I like that one. Hello, how are we? Yeah, I like this track. This track's so much fun. It's really fun to hot lap, which I ended up doing a fair bit of tonight. But yeah, super stoked to really try and put a stamp on the start of this championship and like really get that championship momentum going.
It's not Monza, it's not Snetterton, but it seems like no one could break away in the lead in that race number 1. There was so many 5-car, 6-car packs the whole way through. What is it about Donington that gave us that?
It's just the constant high speed nature of the track, because we're always in 3rd, 4th, 5th gear. The draft is so much more powerful the faster you go. So obviously the faster you go, the more air resistance there is. So the more air resistance, the stronger the draft. So yeah, it's just one of those things. It's super hard to break away on a track like this. And like the only reason I broke away in race 2 is because AJ and Chastity had just that little tiny scuffle, which was just enough to break the draft. And then once the draft's broken, I could just, start to stretch my legs and ended up having a fairly cruisy win.
And then, of course, changing the format, that meant straight to pole position for race number 2. Is that sort of a relief when you're in that situation to not have to go through qualifying again? And overall, the shoe can be on the other foot. If you get taken out in race number 1, you can be in a difficult position for race number 2. You think it's an advantage for you?
Yeah, kind of, because generally I botch these 1-lap qualies, so I generally just overdo it a little bit and make a mistake. So yeah, take the win, and then grab the pole straight away was pretty nice. kind of didn't work for Russell. And that's the thing; it makes it so much more compounding if you have a mistake or an issue in race one, where you end up down the back of the order, because then of course you start the next race at the back of the grid. So it's an interesting one. My thoughts more is the 1 hour of quali now that we've got the open quali at the start. So that's to me an even bigger shake up, and I don't mind it. Like, obviously I got pole tonight, which is good, but like the lap time that I did drafted or undrafted would have been pole. I think my fastest undrafted lap was only a 10th slower than the one I took. So it definitely opens up and is shaking up quali a little bit more, having that so much time that to set it to lap. And obviously with the Skippy getting faster through the session, it really disadvantages people like who jump in late, like Braden, who was so late today that he didn't even manage to make the grid.
Well, going to Silverstone for the Enduro next round, how important is it going to be to have your teammates Russell Clarke, Brodie Cook a little closer up front for qualifying and for the race?
Oh, yeah, look, it would be nice. But also at the same time, every time we get close to each other, something bad usually happens, because, Milo cars going together just always seems to be a recipe for disaster.
You're trying to tell me there is such a thing as too many teaspoons of Milo?
Oh, something like that. We need. It's because it gets too dry. You need some milk mixed in there, which is the top split guys and the locked on guys with Chastity and Braden and even Sean throwing it into the mix. So, yeah, it would be nice to have Russell up there, just for the fact of having Russell have a nice result for once, because he's had a couple of shockers already. So it would be nice to have Russell up there, and he usually does pretty well at these Enduros. So hopefully we can have a little bit more green up the front.
Ben Snell leading the championship after 2 rounds. Final thoughts from Donington.
Oh yeah, it was good fun, and yeah, that's basically it, I guess.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Cheers.
Oh, there you go, Jason. What about final thoughts from you after 2 races at Donington?
Yeah, well, I did say to you quite early on that I wasn't a big fan of that particular layout, but in the scheme of things, it produced some amazing racing right through the field in both races 1 and 2 tonight, so it did prove me wrong. And, of course, Alex John there did say he was a big fan of the layout, and that proved tonight with a great podium result here tonight. So we are back next week for the Silverstone Grand Prix, and we'll be back here to do it all over again for the Enduro, as you've just covered. So another great track, well suited to these cars, and of course some more action on track right throughout the field is almost guaranteed in this series, week in, week out.
Yeah, and the modern, not the historic layout of Silverstone, so expect draft trains aplenty down the Wellington Straight, down the Hangar Straight, down the Hamilton Straight, every single which way. That's going to be all here on Simspeed TV. Same time next week, 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time. Make sure you're following us, whichever platform you're watching on, be it across Facebook, YouTube, and our others. And we have to say, of course, thank you to Locked On iRacing Podcast, Prestige Trophy Badge and Engraving, and 24/7 Race Control. This has been round 2, season 11 of Ozicar Formula Skip Barber Series. Can't wait to see you again in a week's time.
Fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got with the outside. Both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to him. Oh, my God. Oh. Big crash. Oh, my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are going to want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go. Oh, no.
That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh, my God.
God, what?